what they're supposed to do for a council person, because they just probably just got their ballots
totally
to
do
early
that.
vote
Yeah,
and
we're
realize
taking
there
it
was
at the end. You
nobody
got to keep
running.
that on the whole time.
I've had to answer them.
Good evening. I hereby call the Finance Committee for Lancaster City Council to order. It is 6:01 p.m. The first item we have on the agenda is Resolution 11023, a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a contract for construction of the Independence Boulevard and East Main Street culvert replacement projects coming out of water, wastewater. Mr. James.
Thank you, Chairman McDaniel. I'm going to call Stephen Wellstead to the podium to give us just a little bit more detail on this particular project.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everybody. So I've been up here before a couple times earlier this year with some pieces of legislation on this project. So hopefully you're all familiar. Again, we've got these 3 existing culverts we're replacing that are undersized. And we had this project advertised. We had it bid last Friday. Thankfully, this time around, we got a couple bids. And we're here to ask for authorization to enter the contract with the contractor and get the project constructed. It'll be spring of next year is the timing we're looking at.
Questions?
Just one quick question, Stephen. Is it a contractor we worked with before?
Actually, the apparent low bidder currently is Seals Construction, actually, who just did they did the parking lot for the annex building right behind the police station. So,
Okay.
And they've done some public projects in the past. It's been a while with them, at least in the sewer side, the projects I've been involved in. But yeah, they've done some work for the city before. Okay. And again, I will caution they're the apparent low bidder, but the bids are still being reviewed by our consultant to make sure they've supplied all the required contract documents and everything's in order there. So we don't have any award yet at this point.
Right. And given the timing issue, you want to try and go for 2 readings, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And I do apologize I wasn't able to get this out earlier, but with having the not to exceed amount in there, we want to wait till we have the engineer's estimate when we have a good idea of what that's going to cost. And that did not come in until I think it was last week. It was after the previous council meeting. So this was the earliest meeting I could get it in. And again, so to not delay them a couple extra weeks and get the contract signed, I would kindly ask for 2 readings if council is okay with that.
Any other questions? Like we said, we've been discussing this particular project for a while. What's your pleasure, Mr. James?
Ms. Teener will be my second. We will respectfully ask for 2 readings.
Ms. Teener is a second, and 2 readings on 11023.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
The next item on our agenda is Resolution 11123, a resolution to appropriate from the Capital Improvement Fund to cover the cost of the Martins Park pedestrian bridge replacement project and to authorize the Service Safety Director to go out for bids and enter into a contract for the Martins Park pedestrian bridge replacement project. This is coming out of finance. I don't know if Mr. Baird's here. He was going to speak regarding the bridge. Anyone?
It came out of our city engineer's office. Our city engineer, Kurt Schunk, could speak to it, and I could assist if that's needed.
Good evening. Yeah, Jeff had to go to a wedding today, so I've inherited the task of coming here to present this legislation. You know, it's the Martins Park Bridge that was condemned. Just asking for this appropriation to pay for the project.
So the cost on here not to exceed $365. Do we have a projected cost? Is that the cost, or I thought it was a little bit lower than that?
Yeah, that seems high to me too. We were just talking about that back here. It seemed like that was a lower number. But I don't know if we need to confirm that. Maybe for the second reading?
Yes.
Yeah, this is first reading of 3.
So just a comment, just remember we had mentioned that the bridge is wider. We are replacing the abutments up on the stream as well. And then we are in very difficult times trying to make sure we don't underestimate, just to kind of let you know. But
there was a plan to replace only the superstructure, not the abutments. That was early on, and maybe that's where that lower number's coming from. But after investigating the plans, the original plans, which were kind of sketchy, and then trying to confirm that it matched the plans, the way it was constructed, and there was no consistency, so I think Jeff was of the opinion that we just need to put new abutments in. You don't want to put a new bridge on top of suspect abutments. So that was my first thought too, Paul, is maybe those earlier numbers you were hearing did not include those abutments, and this one does, but I can't say for sure.
Because of his expertise in bridges, it was designed in your office here. We didn't, that was another ability to keep the cost down as well, even though this does seem high.
So the not to exceed number is probably, I'm going to assume it's got some money in there in case you have a cost overrun of some type that you're not expecting.
Yes.
Yeah, we try to come in with a number that's high enough that we don't have to come back. And the cost it'll be bid out. We're doing everything we can to keep that price down regardless, of what the legislation says. That's always our goal.
Questions? Mrs. Teener?
You said at first it was supposed to only be 4 feet across, and then now it's 6. Is that, maybe that's the,
So it was 4 feet to match the abutments, and then when the decision was made that we were going to replace the abutments, we weren't really restricted to that
okay.
4 feet,
Okay,
so the
'cause I was
decision
thinking
was
maybe
made to
that was the
widen it.
cost difference in
It
that.
probably
I don't
would
know.
have
I
something
don't
to do
know.
with it. Other questions regarding this piece of legislation? Anyone?
Yeah, if I might.
Yeah.
Originally, when people were talking about the bridge replacement, they were talking about this potentially coming out of parks funds, and now it looks like it's a fully funded capital project fund project. Can you speak to that?
I cannot, actually.
I'd be happy to speak to it. First of all, the bridge is a pedestrian bridge used by many people in the community and not necessarily related to users of the parks. It predated the bike trail by a number of years, probably about 15 years. I think the original bridge was built around 1985 or something like that. The bike trail wasn't built until 2001. I've gotten a lot of messages and communications from area residents about when is the bridge going to be fixed. It's their way to get across town, not necessarily used by the parks. And if to use parks funding, it may be delayed even more because of the limitations on parks funding and other capital priorities that they have. So it seemed to make sense, since there's a lot of urgency to get it done, to pay for it out of city capital funds, where I'm sure it was paid for originally.
Mrs. Kreitz, did you still have a question?
Oh, I was just going to ask, could somebody give us the amount of what that is and then what that overage is that's included in the cost? Just for informational purposes.
I'm sorry,
What the difference is, if it is the fact that it's wider now and it includes the abutments, what the amount is, and then what the included percentage overage is that's included in that 365?
so the extra cost to widen the bridge is what,
And the abutments.
and the abutments. So cost for this and a cost for the widening.
If we stayed with the original design of that width and those abutments, what would that cost be compared to what we're offering here?
I guess I'm just wondering, what is the percentage that's included for the overage, and then what is the amount that's the cost? Just that difference,
Yes.
just for informational purposes.
Other questions? So we did talk about the funding source at the last meeting, and I made the recommendation that this come out of capital improvement for pretty much what the mayor was discussing. That bridge is used by literally everybody. Of course, during the summer, the parks use it a little bit more because of softball. But it is an artery for pedestrian traffic from one part of town to another. And it is pretty well utilized by a lot of people that have nothing to do with the city park system. So I think we would all agree, though, we'd like to have for second reading, have a better breakdown of the cost and the whole figure. Any other questions? Thank you. Mrs. Kreitz, would you be the second on this? And we're looking at 3 readings on this particular piece.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is Resolution 11223, a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract with a qualified consultant for the inspection services for the 2024 street improvement program coming out of Public Works, Mr. Schoonover.
Yes, thank you. Kurt saw he was up next again, so here he is.
So the streets that we selected this year, we did so following the criteria that we've used all along with traffic counts and condition of the pavement being the top two criteria, and location and mobilization and coordination with other projects and other types of fundings. Those criteria, they're posted on our website. I think you guys have all heard this enough to understand that. We are into, with this list, a lot of these streets are kind of into the neighborhoods, not a lot of high traffic streets. So it's going to be a kind of a not very visible project this year. The reason for that is because a lot of those higher traffic streets are finished. So we're making progress. We're getting back into the neighborhoods now, and I think that's a good thing, and they're sorely needed, all of them, for pavement. And we tried to pick neighborhoods, a couple of the neighborhoods where we are working and coordinating with our street department, with the Lancaster Department of Transportation. They're going to be microsurfacing the streets that are still in good shape, and then we're going to be repaving the streets that are in, less better condition. So I think it'll be good, and we'll hit the whole neighborhood and be able to move on to other parts of the town.
Questions for Mr. Shaw? The list of streets and the alternative streets to be paved for the next year's program list in legislation. Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. So sorry. Thank you. So I apologize. The clerk and I had a chat after I spoke with Kurt earlier. 11223 is actually for the construction and not for the inspection services. So that's why it's 1.8 million. It looks like we cut and pasted from last year's resolution, and we did not state it correctly, but it's for construction and not inspection services. So
And I believe the legislation reads correctly, correct?
No, it does not.
She does not?
She will read it correctly tonight
Okay.
during council. So it will be fixed on the paperwork next time, but just so you're all aware, I apologize for that error.
So, did everyone catch that? We're speaking about the construction of the actual street paving program.
Yeah, this is for construct. Last year, we had two pieces of legislation. We had inspection, and then we had construction. This year, we only have construction. And I think that's where the mix-up was.
Thanks.
Additional questions? All right, Mr. Schoonover, what's your pleasure?
I'm going to be asking for 3 readings with Mr. James as my second.
3 readings, Mr. James is the second. The next item on our agenda is Resolution 11323, a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the mowing and trimming of city cemeteries, also coming out of Public Works, Mr. Schoonover.
Yes, so this is an annual piece. I don't know if Mr. Dietz wants to come up and talk about the ins and outs of it, but I believe how we've been handling the cemeteries the last couple of years has been working out. I haven't heard too much in terms of complaints, so.
Yeah, basically, this is, this season's mowing contract is now complete. We finished up the mowing the week before the fair, so the contractor's done for the season, and this will get us started for next year. We need to go back out to bid. See what kind of qualified bidders we have out there and what kind of pricing we can get going into 2024. This is just like he said, it's basically an annual piece, so we go year to year now. So,
Questions, anyone?
Do you, this year you guys in-house mowed one or two?
We took care of Maple Grove in-house this year. Everything went fine.
Are you you plan on trying to bid that out, or are you gonna?
That's gonna be bid back out, and hopefully, we get all 4 contracts next year. We only had 3 out of the 4 this year. Darrell does have 2 different contractors interested in Maple Grove for next year. So they've been asking questions and going about the business, trying to find out what it's going to take. So we'll see if they bid and what kind of bids we get from them.
Okay.
Other questions? All right. What is your pleasure?
3 readings.
3 readings and
Oh,
Mr. James?
I have Mr. James on here. So. Yeah.
All right.
Usually I flip them around on an even, so I was.
It was because I was missing people.
I got you.
Yeah.
Not that I'm opposed to Mr. James doing the second. Just threw me off.
All right.
Becky's offended, she
The
said.
next item we have on the agenda are ordinances 2823 and 2923, coming out of finance. These are the annual ordinances for the Edie Road TIF. This is a piece of legislation, comes in every year to refinance the remaining portion of the TIF regarding the completion and improvements of the projects on the Edie Road area. They are repaid using funds from the TIF and developers, and there are no city monies involved. So, again, it's an annual piece. We've been doing it for several years. Any questions on that? I think it's pretty straightforward. Anyone? Mr. Ailes, would you be the second on 2823?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz on 2923?
Yes.
And these will go 3 readings. Thank you. Next item we have on our agenda is departmental updates. Are there any departmental updates? Chief Snyder?
Good evening, members of council. I don't know what the rules are on handouts. I only have a couple, but I think it's important that you guys see them, so is it all right? If I
We can pass them around, yeah.
I'll start them at either end. So back in March, we talked about the Nashville school shooting and the Lancaster Police Department's response to that as far as an action plan. We proactively went out and did an audit on where we sat. We had a dynamic event of that nature. And we definitely found some improvements we could make. And that's what I wanted to talk about tonight, because it joins a incident that occurred last Friday with that our officers handled that was, well, I'm pretty proud of. That's about all I can say. So in March, during the Covenant school shooting in Nashville, we talked about our preparedness and just saw some things that we were lacking. No, I'm sorry. Just saw some things that we were lacking. And some of those things were immediately apparent, armor, shields, et cetera. And then some other things we indirectly found out. And so our officers, which I feel everyone should be very proud of them, they identified a project that I think is going to continue to save lives down the line for very little money. So we used in that handout that you see Remington 870 shotguns. They're the black, long-looking shotgun that you see in there. They were absolutely unused. We used them to kill deer mostly when deer were injured or maimed or a harm to themselves. That's about it. As of today, most officers have a lot of long rifles or .223 or .556 that they use for defensive maneuvering and response to dynamic events. So the shotguns were just outdated. And a couple of our armorers came up with this project to take that Remington 870 shotgun and turn it into a less lethal tool. And you'll see on the next few pages with the orange paint on those same 870 shotguns are the Remington 870 less lethal. To go out and buy those, you're probably talking around $500 a piece to have them made like that. But they take the same caliber round, the same type of ammunition. It's just that you use a beanbag round in the less lethal shotgun. And what that is it's a less lethal alternative to a serious threat. So if you can use it, you would use that as opposed to lethal force. There's a whole topic on that I could be up here all night about, but I'll just leave it at that. Essentially, in short, what it does is give officers a lot more options than they had. So that team of officers was able to train everybody, certify everybody, convert all the firearms, implement them, deploy them, and then continue the training beyond that to use the less lethal shotguns. Prior to that, all we had was one less lethal shotgun in the supervisor car, which really hamstrings you on responding to events that are unfolding quite quickly. So that was one of the things that we identified was a complete lack of less lethal. And then also, we didn't have any rifle-rated shields either. So if we showed up at Lancaster High School, God forbid, and something was happening, we'd have to use our bodies as cover because the armor that officers wear is not rifle-rated. It is soft armor. So that was another priority that we placed, and we were able to get in, and instead of buying a bunch of armor for every officer and helmets and all of that, we were able to put 5 shields in every roll call. And these portable shields that you also see in your handout are deployed in 5 vehicles during every shift. So if we have a call that needs that type of defensive equipment, we can have that, and it's most likely on the call already. So going back to last Friday, what I'd like to talk about is we put out a press release on this, but this part wasn't necessarily known. We had a man with a gun call. Neighbors were calling in saying he's pointing a firearm, wanting to kill people. Our officer showed up, confirmed that was the story. He indeed was making those threats. Came out with a long rifle, and if anyone watches TV, they know how those situations can typically unfold. The pictures certainly don't do it justice, but really what I wanted to show you is how quick it was for the officers to deploy those shields. So in the back of their car, there's a picture of how they deployed it out of the back of their car. There's a picture of how they set up with the shield, and then there's a picture of how they cleared that entryway to the house with the shield. None of that would have been possible prior to that audit or prior to us checking for that on that audit. So on that day, not a dynamic event, but not an active shooter, not a lot of people involved, that those same choices and those same projects from the officers paid off on a call that they weren't necessarily anticipated for. And that's kind of the mantra that we have is, it's most likely not going to be used on these large scale dynamic events. It's probably going to be used on an assault or something that we run into of that nature. So they were able to deploy the shields. They deployed the less lethal shotgun because they have them in every car. We were able to deploy it out of a car that was close. We used the less lethal shotgun as opposed to deadly force, and I'm not saying those decisions are right, wrong, or the third. That's not for here to discuss. I'm just saying we used it. The subject was incapacitated, and it ended safely with nobody with serious injuries. And I say that definitely to prop the officers up. I think they did I have other words, but I think they did a darn good job, and really proud of them. And there were a couple of really young officers on that. I'm glad they were exposed to it, and I'm glad they got to see it. But to go through an event is fairly easy to talk about right now, but if you can imagine somebody walking into this room with a long rifle, it's a hard thing to take control of, and it's a hard thing to solve like that. And they did it, and I'm very proud of them, and that's really the only reason I came up today, to try to throw some kudos their way. I'm very proud of those guys. So that's it. The packet, other than what I just said, is not going to serve you much use, so if it has to be entered, that's fine, or I can take it back if it's trash. Like I said, I don't know the rules, so either way is fine with me.
Anyone have any questions for Chief? I would just say that reading and listening to news across the country, a lot of police departments, their only option in these situations would have been to shoot someone. And I think the Lancaster Police Department has taken the initiative to put these tools in the hands of our officers, and we're saving lives with these decisions. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Other departmental updates? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to update that I'll be bringing a piece of legislation before you next council meeting to establish a new fund that is required by the Ohio EPA for the sanitation fund because of the new transfer facility. Sean will have to set aside cash that is restricted for cleanup if needed, but it's just more of that security measure. So it's just kind of us going to be following along of Ohio EPA mandates before the end of the year. So.
Any questions on that? Thank you. Any other departmental updates? Other departmental updates? Seeing none, turn it over to President Uhl for any prep for tonight.
I think we've covered everything outside of the fact we do have 2 presentations tonight that will happen at the front end of the meeting, and we'll gather here quickly right between the 2 meetings to take our picture. So Mr. Porter can take off his disco ball sequence he's got on there. All right. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other items for finance? Any other items for finance? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. 6:26.
The regular meeting of Lancaster City Council will begin at approximately 6:35.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Hi, I'm Christine Simmons with the United Way of Fairfield County. Our mission is to utilize all resources to achieve the greatest impact on our local needs, and this can only be accomplished by local support and generous donations from businesses like Buckeye Toyota and Buckeye Honda's Buckeye Cares program. That means Buckeye will make a donation to the United Way with each vehicle sold. From all of us at United Way, we say thank you, Buckeye, for all your support.
Good evening. Welcome to Lancaster City Council. Please join me in a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for today, and once again, we thank you for your many blessings. We ask that you would be with us, lead, guide, and direct us tonight as we go about the work that's put before us. And we thank you, God, for Mr. Matlin and him putting an end to the infernal beeping that was happening in the hallway. We pray in Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, Mr. Matlin. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
But now there's evidence that I can't.
You thought you were the only one hearing it? I got one or two texts saying, do you hear that? And I was like, what? No, I don't hear anything. Gracious. All right. We are now recovered from the beeping. Thank you again, Mr. Matlin. Yes. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers? Here. Mr. Ailes?
Here.
Mrs. Kreitz? Here. Mr. James? Here. Mr. Matlin?
Here.
Mr. McDaniel?
Here.
Mr. Porter?
Here.
Mr. Schoonover?
Here.
And Mrs. Teener?
Here.
Thank you all very much. Let the record reflect that all 9 members of the Lancaster City Council are in attendance. All members and members of administration, please make sure your microphones are on if you are planning to speak this evening. Reports of city official. Oh no, we got to read and dispose of the journal first.
I'd like to present the regular meeting minutes dated October 9th, 2023.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the journal.
Second.
A motion and a second to receive and file the journal. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now reports to city officials.
Email dated October 10th, 2023 regarding clerk of council position submitted by Mrs. Kreitz. Email dated October 10th, 2023 regarding clerk of council position submitted by Mr. Porter. Email dated October 10th, 2023 regarding code committee meeting submitted by Mr. Ehlers. Email dated October the 11th, 2023 regarding code committee meeting submitted by Mr. Porter. Email dated October 12th, 2023 regarding public works agenda submitted by Mr. Schoonover. Email dated October 15th, 2023 regarding draft meeting minutes submitted by Mr. Ehlers. Email dated October 16th, 2023 regarding economic development agenda submitted by Mr. Ailes. Email dated October 16th, 2023 regarding November 1st meeting submitted by Erica Todd, Code Enforcement Director. Email dated October 16th, 2023 regarding United Way 5K November 11th, 8 a.m. Join us, submitted by Deputy Service Safety Director Carrie Woody. Email dated October 18th, 2023 regarding the 11-1 Code Enforcement meeting submitted by Mr. Ehlers. Email dated October 19th, 2023 regarding council clerk submitted by Mr. Porter. Email dated October 19th, 2023 regarding IT telecom agenda submitted by Mrs. Teener. Email dated October 19th, 2023 regarding water pollution. October the 11th, 2023 discussion submitted by Mr. James. Email dated October 23rd, 2023 regarding cheat sheet submitted by Mr. Porter. And finally, an email dated October 23rd, 2023 regarding finance committee agenda submitted by Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the communications.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports to city
Yeah,
officials.
that one too.
That one? All
Yep,
right.
do
And
that
you
one.
second? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Communications.
There are none to be presented.
We have 2 special presentations tonight. We welcome to the podium Mayor of the City of Lancaster, David Scheffler, who has a special presentation for the City Auditor.
I'm actually filling in tonight for Scott Brown, who's the Director or Auditor Favors Central Regional Representative. And he was going to be here, but tonight was his wedding anniversary, so he was advised by his spouse that she would rather not come down here to a city council meeting for their wedding anniversary.
She doesn't know what she's missing.
But I couldn't say it any better than what he was going to say tonight, so I'm just going to read it. This award puts your city in a very select group. Our office audits approximately 6,000 entities per year, and less than 4% are eligible for this award. The Auditor of State Award with Distinction is presented to local governments, school districts, and other entities upon the completion of a financial audit that meet these criteria to be considered a clean audit report. The entity must file financial reports with the Auditor's Office by the statutory due date without extension on a GAAP accounting basis and prepare a comprehensive annual financial report. The audit report does not contain any findings for recovery, material citations, material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, uniform guidance findings, or question cost. The entity's management letter contains no comments related to ethics, referrals, question cost with less than the threshold, per the uniform guidance, lack of timely report submission, bank reconciliation issues, failure to obtain timely single audit in accordance with uniform guidance, findings for recovery of less than $500 in public meetings or public records issue. This award represents the hard work of all of the City of Lancaster's employees and financial staff who make every effort each day to attain accounting excellence. I want to recognize council, administration, and fiscal department that have done an outstanding job watching over every dollar. I specifically want to recognize Patricia Nettles for her leadership, professionalism, and exceptional commitment to financial integrity. So congratulations on behalf of Auditor Faber, and this is the second year in a row that Trish has been presented with this award, and a minimum of 4 and possibly 5 times. She doesn't recall exactly how many. So congratulations, good work.
Thank you. This would not be possible without my staff that every day deals with every department and with the departments keeping with that too. So this kind of goes out to my staff and all of the departments that probably don't like us on some days, but deal with us and give everything that the state audit that I know that they're going to require. So this kind of goes to my girls in the office and a lot of the other city departments, city council that kind of help me in this task. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Auditor Nettles, and thank you for all you do to safeguard the dollars that the city has been entrusted with. Thank you. All right, we now have our second special presentation tonight. We'd like to welcome Executive Director Christine Simmons to the podium. She is here to talk a little bit about United Way, the current United Way campaign, and all that is happening. So feel free to take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Christine Simmons, the new Executive Director of United Way. Happy to be here. Just want to tell you a little bit about myself and what led me here. United Way is truly a passion. I've been on both sides of United Way, not only just as a volunteer with Impact Councils and leading to a board position and now as CEO, but I've also been a recipient of many of the agencies that we support. And so that's what led me to join United Way, and that's what led me to just really want to take leadership and get the word out to our community. We are doing great work here in Fairfield County, and I want to make sure that we continue. And so I want to tell you a little bit about our September 13th, our campaign kickoff, Community Care Day. We had over 800 volunteers at over 45 projects throughout Fairfield County. That's huge. Those numbers, those volunteers are getting great numbers every year. We seem to increase. We had over, I believe, 7 high schools sent large amounts of students. I think they made up over 500 of the volunteers. So from the city, we had 35 volunteers on our Community Care Day, and I just really want to thank you because we cannot continue to do this Community Care Day and complete all the projects that we do throughout the county without your support. Some of our major projects this year were the Big Brothers Big Sisters moving into the old General Sherman building, and of course the Salvation Army moving into the Golden Corral. Those were 2 big projects, and they took the full day, and they took a lot of volunteers. So I appreciate all your support. It's a great day. I hope you all got a chance to see the sea of blue t-shirts that were all across Fairfield County that day. It was great to see, and it was great to see all the positivity across social media as well. We are now getting ready for our 5K, and the city has been challenged, and so far you have 45 city employees signed up to participate in our 5K, and we do appreciate that as well. So I would just challenge you to keep adding to those numbers. I do not have our campaign video to share with you this evening, so I would encourage all of you to go to our Facebook page or our website and take a small opportunity to check out that video. Interface always does a great job, and it just gives you a brief snippet of all the different agencies we do support here in Fairfield County. I want to also thank you for donating close to over $900 either through council or your workplace giving. That money is contributing to our 1.5 million goal this year, and we are just really anxious to see what this campaign brings and all the good work we can do with it. Another big initiative is Dolly's Imagination Library. We currently have about 56% of the eligible children in Fairfield County are receiving books, and we'd like to get those numbers up. So that is another campaign that we are leading charge on and trying to collect some funds for that as well. So I thank you. I encourage you all to see me anytime. I'm in this building, and I'd love to share all the agencies that we help and answer any questions you may have. And I encourage you just to give your fair share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Simmons? Well, we appreciate you and all that United Way does. Let's show her our appreciation for being here this evening. Thank you. All right, are there any petitions or memorials?
There are none to be presented.
During this time, Lancaster City Council sets time aside to allow the voters and taxpayers of the city to address us on any item or issue they would like. Is there anyone who would like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll say thank you for being here, and we'll move on in the agenda. Reports of standing committees.
IT Telecom Committee meeting minutes dated August 18th, 2023, and September 15th, 2023, submitted by Mrs. Teener. And finally, the Finance Committee meeting minutes dated October 23rd, 2023, submitted by Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of standing committees.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports of standing committees. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So the reports of special committees.
There are none to be presented.
We have no public hearings this evening, so we'll move to the reading of resolutions, beginning with the third reading of temporary resolution 98-23.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the Talmadge Avenue Replacement Project for the Lancaster Municipal Gas Department, offered by Mr. Matlin and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes, Mr. President, I make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 98-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 98-23. Discussion, Mr. Matlin.
This is the go out for bids for contracts for the gas department to continue their replacement of lines. They're calling it the Talmadge Avenue, but it's a big area on the west side where they'll be continuing the work they've been doing on the east side, replacing lines and meters for a lot of residents.
Great. Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 98-23 passes 9-0. We now have second reading on a series of resolutions, beginning with temporary resolution 105-23.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to dispense with competitive bidding and enter into a contract with Truck Country of Indiana, Inc., doing business as Stoops Western Star of Ohio, according to the State of Ohio's Cooperative Purchasing Program, for the purchase of a cab, chassis, and plow hitch for use by the Lancaster Department of Transportation, offered by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Porter.
Mr. Schoonover.
Second of three readings, please.
Second of three readings then on temporary resolution 105-23, temporary resolution 106-23.
A resolution to repeal and replace permanent resolution 99-23 passed by City Council on September 25th, 2023, and to restate the services to be provided by the municipal corporation to annex territory of Metro Development for the expedited Type 2 annexation of parcel number 01401000400, consisting of 8.9 plus minus acres in Greenfield Township, and to declare an emergency. Offered by Mrs. Kreitz and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mrs. Kreitz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 106-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 106-23. Discussion, Mrs. Kreitz.
I'll save it.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call, suspend. Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll. We have a problem?
We might.
Do we need to hang on for a second?
Would you please?
Okay.
Yes.
If there's no objection, we can go outside of the order without a vote and move on to the next item and come back to this. Would you withdraw your motion?
Yes.
And would the second withdraw?
Yes.
Then we'll hold this and come back to it. Let's move on to temporary resolution 107-23.
A resolution authorizing the law director to negotiate and enter into a contract with the City of Reynoldsburg for the prosecution of adult misdemeanor, traffic, and criminal offenses committed in the City of Reynoldsburg within Fairfield County, Ohio, and to accept payment. Offered by Mr. McDaniel and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. McDaniel.
Second of 3 readings.
Second to 3 readings then on temporary resolution 107-23, temporary resolution 109-23.
A resolution to authorize the City of Lancaster to approve the Violet Township New Community Authority and to declare an emergency. Offered by Mr. Ailes and seconded by Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. Ailes.
Yes, I move that we waive the rules and suspend the third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 109-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 109-23. Discussion, Mr. Ailes?
I'll save it.
Discussion on the motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. Ailes.
Yes, I move that we pass and engross and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 109-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 109-23. Discussion, Mr. Ailes?
We are involved in this because we are the most populous city in Fairfield County. They petitioned us, we approve, and then the county commissioners approve it. So that's our only rule in this.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 109-23 passes 9-0. We now have first reading on a series of resolutions, beginning with temporary resolution 110-23.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a contract for the construction of the Independence Boulevard East Main Street Culvert Replacement Project. Offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James.
Thank you, President Dole. This is the first of 2 readings.
First of 2 readings on temporary resolution 110-23. Temporary resolution 111-23.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor and the capital improvement fund 3020 to cover the cost of the Martins Park pedestrian bridge replacement project and to authorize the service safety director to go out for bids and enter into a contract for the Martins Park pedestrian bridge replacement project. Offered by Mr. McDaniel and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. McDaniel.
First of 3 readings.
First of 3 readings then on temporary resolution 111-23. Table that one. Okay, we'll come back to it. Well, we'll do it before we move to ordinances.
Yes.
All right, temporary resolution 112-23.
A resolution authorizing the service safety director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for construction for the 2024 street improvement project. Offered by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. James.
Mr. Schoonover.
First of 3 readings, please.
First of 3 readings on temporary resolution 112-23, temporary resolution 113-23.
A resolution authorizing the service safety director to advertise for bids and enter into contracts for mowing and trimming the city cemeteries. Offered by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. James.
Mr. Schoonover.
First of 3 readings, please.
First of 3 readings on temporary resolution 113-23. We'll now move back up to temporary resolution 106-23. Has already been read. Ms. Kreitz, what's your pleasure?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council place on the table resolution temporarily numbered 106-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place upon the table temporary resolution 106-23. There is no opportunity to debate a motion to place upon the table. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to table carries 9-0, and temporary resolution 106-23 is placed upon the table. All right, are there other resolutions to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? If not, we'll move to the reading of ordinances, beginning with third reading of temporary ordinance 20-23.
An ordinance to repeal and replace Lancaster Codified Ordinance Part 9, Streets, Utilities, and Public Services Code, Title 5, Other Public Services, Chapter 937, Waste Removal of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Lancaster, and to declare an emergency. Offered by Mr. Matlin and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. Matlin.
Yes, Mr. President, I make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 20-23. Discussion, Mr. Matlin?
Just to rehash, this is the ordinance that does a lot of cleanup in the sanitation department as far as language and things, but it also adjusts the rates to try to get sanitation to be solvent for the next 8 to 10 years, I would hope. Takes into account the new transfer station and the changing economies that we have going on.
Very good. Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to pass. Yes, Ms. Teener.
I just have a question. And Sean here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I was thinking about the rates, raising it for the seniors and that. So they have is it 45 gallon? They have a 45 gallon toter?
48.
48. Okay, if they have 48 gallon, and then the bigger ones, how much?
96.
96. So you want to raise the 48 gallon one, what, $4?
It'd be the same increment, but it'd be less than any.
Okay, but
Less
what
than
I'm
the other.
saying is, so if you have 96 gallon, and then are the other ones, let's say if people have multiple ones, 2 or 3, are you gonna raise the rate on each individual one of those, or are they still just gonna be $3 a month?
It increases incrementally across the board, yeah.
Okay, so they're not gonna be $3 a month either, it's gonna.
Well, that
$3
gap will still be the $3 there.
See,
yes,
I
for
guess, and I just had thought about this today, I was thinking, why isn't because that's 96 gallons.
Right.
Why isn't the $3, why isn't that going up each toter instead of $3?
Well, when I sat down, it's not just a 48 or a 96. There's about 60 different trash codes. So to make all those work, that is what enters into that it's $3 more for that toter. But that $3 increased, it's a $3 gap, but that went up the $4. So where it was $13.50 and then $16.50, now it's $16.50 and the $20.50. So it did go up, but the gap is still $3 because the gap didn't change. The gap was there before.
Yeah.
And that step is still there.
But do you understand
It
what
went
I'm
up-
saying? It's the same,
Not really, because it went up
96
the $4. So I actually.
I was thinking for each
I
toter.
mean, we're one of the very few
I know that.
that even offer a senior rate. A few municipalities in my research do, not every. And I don't know that I found a private company that offers a discounted senior rate. So we're way far ahead by offering that, and that is a reduced rate and.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Teener. Further discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
No.
Temporary ordinance 20-23 passes 8-1. Temporary ordinance 22-23.
An ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of notes in the maximum principal amount of $540,000 in anticipation of issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the cost of renovation of an existing building for use by the city's municipal court, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency. Offered by Mr. McDaniel and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record ordinance temporarily numbered 2223.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 22-23. Discussion, Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, Mr. President. As a reminder, this is the annual ordinance to finance remaining debt associated with the cost overruns of the municipal court building. The original amount was $1.8 million, and we are in the 7th installment of that, leaving $540,000 remaining.
Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary ordinance 22-23 passes 9-0. Temporary ordinance 23-23.
In order to repeal and replace permanent ordinance 17-23 passed on August 14th, 2023, authorizing a joint economic development district contract between the City of Lancaster and Violet Township and to declare an emergency, offered by Mr. Ailes and seconded by Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. Ailes.
Yes, I'd move that we table ordinance temporarily number 23-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place upon the table temporary ordinance 23-23. A motion to table is not debatable. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
We'll quickly note there is a public hearing set for this on November 13th at our next meeting at 6:30 p.m. Motion to table carries 9-0. We now have second reading on a series of ordinances, beginning with temporary ordinance 24-23.
An ordinance to establish the compensation for the council president, council members, and the council clerk for the term commencing payroll 1 of 2024, offered by Mr. McDaniel and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Second reading.
Second to three readings on temporary ordinance 24-23. Temporary ordinance 25-23.
An ordinance to establish the compensation for the mayor for the term commencing payroll 1 of 2024, offered by Mrs. Kreitz and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Mrs. Kreitz.
Yes, second of three readings.
Second to three readings on temporary ordinance 25-23. Temporary ordinance 26-23.
An ordinance to establish the compensation for the auditor for the term commencing payroll 1 of 2024, offered by Mrs. Kreitz and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Second of three readings.
Thank you very much. Second to three readings on temporary ordinance 26-23. Temporary ordinance 27-23.
An ordinance to provide for a full-time law director and to establish the compensation for the law director for the term commencing payroll 1 of 2024, offered by Mrs. Kreitz, seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Mrs. Kreitz.
Second of three readings.
Second to three readings on temporary ordinance 27-23. We're now first reading on temporary ordinance 28-23.
An ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of revenue notes in the aggregate principal amount of $820,127.52 to pay costs of improving Edie Road, Memorial Drive, and Michael's Way by grading, widening, paving, curbing, and improving bridges and railroad crossings, relocating utilities and installing sidewalks, traffic signals and signs, and water, sanitary, and stormwater lines and facilities, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency. Offered by Mr. McDaniel and seconded by Mr. Ailes.
Mr. McDaniel.
First reading.
First three readings on temporary ordinance 28-23. Temporary ordinance, what happened to it? There it is, 29-23.
An ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of a revenue note in the aggregate principal amount of $54,392.13 to reimburse Flagstar Bank, FSB, for a draw on a letter of credit in connection with the cost of improving Edie Road, Memorial Drive, and Michael's Way by grading, widening, paving, curbing, and improving bridges and railroad crossings, relocating utilities and installing sidewalks, traffic signals and signs, and water, sanitary, and stormwater lines and facilities, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency. Offered by Mr. McDaniel and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. McDaniel.
I just want to say about 28 and 29 are regarding the Edie Road TIF, and this is developer funding, but this is first of three readings.
First of three readings on temporary ordinance 29-23. Are there any further ordinances to come before Lancaster City Council this evening? If not, we'll move to tabled legislation. We have two pieces now on the table, but since they were placed there tonight, I expect there's no action to be taken on those, so we will move on to unfinished business. Does anyone have unfinished business this evening? Mr. McDaniel?
I should have addressed this in Finance Committee, but and the administration is working on having the budget to us for first reading. It will obviously be our negotiations going on with the various unions, so some of the salary issues will not be resolved, but it will be a first reading of the city's budget expected at our next meeting.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. Further,
I'm sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
I should also mention that we will look at bringing the annual pay ordinances in for first reading also.
Great. All right. Any other unfinished business this evening? Yes, Mr. Porter.
Thank you, President Newell. We will be having a public meeting on October 27th to discuss the council clerk position. We do have a new letter of interest with that. Meeting time and location to be determined. Clerk Sandy is going to look at what's available for that. So it's, time is of the essence to get a candidate identified so that they have an opportunity to train, since we only have 3 meetings left, somebody said. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're getting close. Yep, that's right.
So
So you mean a open meeting with all members of council?
it's with the committee.
The committee. Your committee, okay.
Yeah, but if anybody wishes to attend, obviously.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, any other unfinished business this evening? Does anyone have any new business this evening? Yes, Mr. Ehlers.
I would just like to note that on the next scheduled code enforcement meeting, I believe it's scheduled for the municipal court community room on the 2nd floor instead of the 1897 room on here.
For code enforcement on November 1st?
Correct.
Okay.
Do I have the 1897? I have that on there, okay.
So it'll be in the municipal
Court community room on
court
the
community
2nd floor.
room. Okay, thank you very much. Any other new business this evening? If not, we'll ask that the clerk read our regularly scheduled city council meetings.
We have 3 meetings left for the year. The next meeting is November 13th at 6:30 PM. We have a public hearing on temporary ordinance 23-23. The meeting after is November 27th at 6:30 PM, and the following meeting is December the 11th at 6:30 PM. Upcoming committee meetings for the next 30 days. Law, November 1st at 11:30 AM at the 1897 conference room. Code enforcement, November 1st at 3 PM at the municipal court community room on the 2nd floor. Service, November 3rd at 7:30 AM at the 1897 conference room. Water, November 8th at 8:30 AM at the 1897 conference room. Safety, November 13th at 8:30 AM at the 1897 conference room. Finance, November 13th, 6 PM here in council chambers. And finally, IT, November 17th at 8 AM at the 1897 conference room.
Thank you very much. Are there any bills?
There's one. MNCO, $49.28 for publication of legislation.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pay the bill.
Second.
A motion and a second to pay the bill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I know of no need for an executive session. I'll just make a quick note that for the last 2 meetings, Mr. Porter has prepared to lead them, and then I've showed up unexpectedly because the things I was planning to do were canceled. I will be in the Smoky Mountains the next time, so he is definitely up for the November 13th meeting. So thank you for covering Mr. Porter. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. President, I'd like to make that motion. We adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Please remember to sign your legislation. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned.